History isn't just made of kings, generals, and the roar of Spitfires. It's made by those who stood in the gaps. The few who were asked to do the impossible, often with nothing but their wits and a bit of luck. You've found your way to the chosen few, where we look past the headlines of war to find the human heart beating underneath. Today, we aren't looking up at the dogfights over Kent. We are looking down at the freezing, grey waters of the English Channel in the summer of 1940. Before we begin, I want you to do something. Pick a number between 1 and 100. Write it down, or put it in the comments right now. By the end of this story, that number will determine if you would have made it home, or if the sea would have claimed you as just another statistic of the Battle of Britain. The English Channel is a beautiful stretch of water on a postcard, but in 1940, it was a graveyard. For the young men of the RAF, the drink, as they called it, was more terrifying than a Messerschmitt on their tail. If you were shot down over the water in July of 1940, your chances of survival were less than 20%. Think about that. You survive a 400-mile-per-hour gunfight. You successfully bail out of a burning cockpit. You hit the water alive. And you still have an 80% chance of dying before sunset. The British military, for all its naval history, was shockingly unprepared for this. They were using slow, heavy naval pinnaces and civilian lifeboats that could barely top 10 knots. By the time a rescue boat reached the coordinates of a downed pilot, they usually found nothing but an empty life jacket and an oil slick. The cold was a silent executioner. In the Channel, even in the height of summer, hypothermia sets in within hours. But in the midst of this desperation, a new breed of predator was born. It wasn't made of steel, but of mahogany. It didn't fly, but it could plane across the surface of the waves like a skipping stone. This was the High-Speed Launch 102. Built by the British Powerboat Company, the HSL 102 was 64 feet of sheer aggression. It was designed by a man named Hubert Scott Payne, but its soul was forged by none other than T. Lawrence of Arabia, who had spent his post-World War I years obsessed with making rescue boats faster. He knew that in a rescue, speed was the only currency that mattered. Imagine standing on the deck of HSL 102. Under your feet are 3 massive Napier Sea Lion engines, essentially detuned aircraft engines, pumping out 1,500 horsepower. When the coxswain opened the throttles, the bow wouldn't just rise, the entire boat would leap. It could hit 40 knots, a speed that felt like teleportation compared to the old tugs. It was painted with a bright yellow deck and the massive red, white, and blue roundel of the RAF. It was a target, yes, but it was also a beacon of hope. It's August 1940. The air over Dover is thick with the scent of cordite and aviation fuel. You are a crewman on HSL 102, stationed at Hellfire Corner. The scramble bell rings, not for a pilot, but for you. A Spitfire has gone down 15 miles off the coast of Calais. The German shore batteries are active. The Luftwaffe is circling. As you cast off the lines, the Napier engines roar to life, vibrating through your boots. You aren't just going for a boat ride. You are heading into the kill zone. The channel is choppy, the white horses of the waves threatening to smash a wooden boat to splinters at high speed. Every time the hull slams into a wave, it feels like hitting a brick wall. As the white cliffs of Dover fade into the sea spray behind you, you realize the grim reality of your mission. The German E-boats are out there. The Bf 109s are hunting anything that moves on the water. And somewhere, bobbing in a sea that wants to swallow him whole, is a 19-year-old pilot who is checking his watch, wondering if the mahogany bullet is actually coming for him. You look at the number you picked at the start of this video. In August 1940, the odds are stacked against you. The sea is hungry, and the HSL 102 is the only thing standing between a young man and a cold, forgotten grave. You are 10 miles out now. The white cliffs of Dover have shrunk into a thin, chalky line on the horizon. Out here, the English Channel doesn't feel like a waterway. It feels like an arena. On the deck of HSL 102, the noise is absolute. It isn't just the roar of the 3 Napier Sea Lion engines. It's the sound of the wind screaming through the radio masts and the rhythmic, bone-jarring thwack-thwack-thwack of a mahogany hull slamming into the chop at 40 knots. Every man on board is scanning the horizon until their eyes ache. Searching for a downed pilot in the channel is like trying to find a single yellow dandelion in a field of grey, rolling hills. You are looking for a Mae West, the nickname for the life jacket that supposedly gave a pilot the curves of the famous actress. But in reality, a pilot in the water is just a tiny dark speck. If he hasn't managed to release his dye marker, which turns the water a fluorescent, sickly green, you are effectively blind. In the small, cramped radio room of HSL 102, the wireless operator is hunched over his set. He is the heartbeat of the boat. He's listening to the frantic fixes coming from the shore-based direction-finding stations. The RAF controllers on land are trying to triangulate the last known position of the downed Spitfire. But radio signals in 1940 are fickle, and the German jammers are working overtime. Suddenly, the coxswain throttles back. The sudden drop in engine pitch is deafening in its own right. The boat settles into the swell, rolling heavily. "There!" shouts the lookout. A mile to the northeast, a small, rhythmic flash. A pilot's signal mirror. It's a heartbeat of light against the slate-grey water. The engines scream back to life, the bow rises, and HSL 102 begins its final run. The crew prepares the scrambling nets. Heavy rope mesh draped over the side of the boat to help a freezing, exhausted man climb aboard. But as the boat closes the distance, a new sound begins to drown out the Napier engines. It's a high-pitched mechanical whine. It sounds like a circular saw cutting through a sheet of metal. Every man on deck knows that sound. It's the Daimler-Benz engine of a Messerschmitt Bf 109. Until this point in the summer of 1940, there was a lingering, unwritten code of the sea. Even the Luftwaffe had, at times, allowed rescue craft to go about their business. But the Battle of Britain was shifting. The order had come down from the German High Command. Any pilot rescued is a pilot who will be back in the air tomorrow. To the Luftwaffe, HSL 102 wasn't a mercy ship. It was a recovery vehicle for the enemy's most valuable weapon, the pilot. The 109 drops out of the sun, a predatory shape with a yellow-painted nose. It's a Jabo, a fighter-bomber variant. The German pilot isn't going for the man in the water. He's going for the boat. Action stations. The crew of HSL 102 scrambles to their defense. This isn't a destroyer. There are no heavy cannons here. Your only defense is a set of twin .303 Lewis guns in aircraft-style turrets. They look like toys compared to the 20mm cannons on the Messerschmitt. The first strafing run is a terrifying revelation of what modern war does to wood. The 20mm shells don't just hit the boat, they explode. As the German pilot squeezes the trigger, a line of white fountains erupts across the water, marching toward the hull of HSL 102. Then, the sound reaches you, a sound like a giant tearing a silk sheet in half. The mahogany deck splinters. The air is suddenly filled with spalls, lethal shards of wood that act like shrapnel. A shell punches through the thin skin of the radio room. The wireless operator, the man who was the boat's only link to the shore, never had a chance. He is killed instantly at his desk, his fingers still near the key. The boat is raked from stem to stern. Smoke begins to pour from one of the engine vents. The Messerschmitt pulls up into a steep climb, banking hard for a second pass. You are sitting in a wooden box filled with hundreds of gallons of high-octane aviation fuel, and the most dangerous pilot in the world is circling back to finish you off. And right there, just 50 yards off the starboard bow, is the pilot you came to save. He's bobbing in his yellow dinghy, his face pale with shock, watching his rescue ship be torn to pieces. The coxswain has a choice. He can turn the boat, open the throttles, and try to use his speed to escape back toward the protection of the Dover Shore batteries. Or he can stop. He can sit dead in the water, a stationary target, and try to pull that pilot aboard before the 109 comes back down. If you're following along with the number you picked at the start, this is where the math gets difficult. In a wooden boat under cannon fire, your number is starting to sweat. The air is thick with the metallic tang of spent cordite and the sweet, cloying smell of high-octane petrol. On the deck of HSL 102, time hasn't just slowed down, it has curdled. The German pilot is banking, pulling his Messerschmitt into a wide, graceful arc. To him, you are a target of opportunity. To you, he is death incarnate, draped in a Luftwaffe camouflage. The coxswain, a man whose hands are locked onto the wheel so tight his knuckles are white as the Dover chalk, makes his call. He doesn't flee. He slams the engines into neutral. The boat lurches, the wake catching up and slapping against the mahogany transom. The crew lunges for the scrambling nets. The pilot in the water is Richard Hillary, or perhaps it's a boy just like him. He is soaked, his flying boots weighted down with gallons of seawater, his hands so numb from the shock of the channel that they look like pale, useless claws. He reaches for the rope, but his fingers won't close. He slips. The current, a treacherous thing in the Straits of Dover, tries to suck him under the hull. Two crewmen reach down, their bellies pressed against the wet deck, their shoulders screaming as they grab the pilot by the harness of his Mae West. They aren't just pulling a man, they are pulling 200 pounds of dead weight and sodden wool against a rising swell. Suddenly, the scream of the Daimler-Benz engine returns. The 109 is coming back for its second pass. This is the moment where the gentleman's war ends. The German pilot isn't aiming for the engines this time. He's aiming for the men on the deck. The Lewis guns on HSL 102 chatter back, a desperate, rhythmic pop-pop-pop that feels pitiful against the roar of the Messerschmitt. The water around the boat begins to boil as the 20mm cannon shells strike. Shards of mahogany fly like shrapnel. A bullet shears through the mast. But the crew doesn't let go. With a final, guttural heave, they roll the pilot over the gunwale. He hits the deck like a landed fish, gasping, coughing up salt water and oil. The coxswain doesn't wait for the pilot to catch his breath. He jams the throttles forward. The Napier engines respond with a guttural howl, throwing a wall of white spray into the air that acts as a momentary smoke screen. HSL 102 jinks, a violent, zigzag maneuver designed to throw off the Germans' aim. The boat is wounded. The radio room is a wreck of glass and blood where the operator fell. The hull is weeping water from a dozen splintered holes. But she is moving. At 40 knots, HSL 102 is a hard target to hit twice. The Messerschmitt, perhaps low on fuel or sensing the approach of a British CAP, Combat Air Patrol, pulls up and vanishes into the hazy glare of the afternoon sun. The journey back to Dover is the longest hour of your life. The adrenaline fades, replaced by the bone-deep chill of the salt wind. You wrap the pilot in heavy wool blankets and give him the ASR special, a mug of Navy-strength rum and hot tea. He doesn't say thank you. He can't. He just stares at the floorboards of the boat that saved his life, listening to the engines that brought him back from the edge of the abyss. As HSL 102 limps into the harbour, the onlookers see the splintered wood and the blood-stained deck. They see a boat that should have been at the bottom of the sea. But as the lines are thrown to the quay, the motto of the Air Sea Rescue Service rings true: the sea shall not have them. At the start of this video, I asked you to pick a single number between 1 and 100. In the summer of 1940, that wasn't just a number. It was your heartbeat. It was the difference between a warm bed in Kent and a cold grave in the Channel. Let's see if your luck held out. The lucky few rescued. If you picked any of the following numbers, the mahogany bullet reached you. You were pulled from the swell, wrapped in a blanket, and lived to fly another day. You are among the chosen few. 7, 13, 22, 33, 45, 51, 68, 77, 82, 94, 99. If you picked these numbers, you were rescued, but not by the British. A German Heinkel 59 seaplane spotted your die marker first. You spent the next 5 years behind barbed wire in Stalag Luft 3. The war ended for you in the water. 3, 19, 36, 50, 62, 85. If you chose these numbers, you weren't the pilot in the water. You were the crew on the deck of HSL 102. You saved the pilot, but the 20mm cannon fire from that Messerschmitt found you. You are remembered on the Runnymede Memorial. 10, 27, 42, 55, 91. If your number wasn't called, then the math of 1940 caught up with you. Whether it was the cold, the injuries, or the vastness of the grey Atlantic, you became one of the 80% who never came home. So like we do every episode, I invite you all to give a moment and join us in a moment of remembrance. So thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.